What's up, guys? This is episode 64 of Convos on the Pedicab. We got District 2 County Commissioner in Travis County, Brigid Shea.
Hey, Alex.
I'm excited to have you on. You know, this whole thing started because I talked a whole bunch of shit to you about the environment and masks, and then you actually responded. And you said, well, you know, if you want to have an adult discussion, I'm happy to. And I'm like, okay, I got a podcast. Let's do this. And here we are, doing a podcast.
Very good. Having an adult conversation. Good.
And we got a chance to talk for a minute about a whole bunch of stuff, too.
Yeah.
What were we talking about at first? We were talking about Bitcoin just now. We had a whole discussion about
and you were talking
Bitcoin.
about how much you like Tucker Carlson on Fox. And I was like, no, I don't. Or you thought he was more reasonable.
I think he's actually one of the better I think he's actually one of the better journalists who actually does his research compared to the other people who just repeat their news talking points. And I'm talking, and this is going across every aspect. I don't know.
I don't watch him all the time. Like I said, I only see him.
I'm seeing him
in
talk
the
about.
blips that
He's
come
talking
on
to
social
family
media.
members of Julian Assange. He's bringing up points about how like the FBI and the NSA spy on and have a direct hand in all types of protest movements.
Well, I will tell you, I am concerned about the level of essentially spying on populations. I mean, the stuff that's going on in Hong Kong is horrible, and the stuff that that China's doing is just appalling. And I'm just thinking, what can we do about it? But here, the Fusion Center, ARIC is the initial for it. I'm sure you're familiar with it. ARIC, the Austin Regional Information Center, or something like that. But it's basically a place where they gather intelligence, and they have hundreds of people who basically function as kind of spies. There was a big hack on it. Do you not know about this?
No, explain it. I'm actually interested.
There was a big hack on it, and a lot of information was released like in February of this year. If you go back February, I just came across this story because I was cleaning out newspaper clips in my home office. And it included people ratting out teenage girls in Bee Cave who wanted to have a Black Lives Matter protest in front of the Bee Cave City Council. And they were like reporting these people.
Were they also reporting people for like not social distancing and doing stuff like that too, though?
I don't know about that. But what I did ask is, did they notice all the people who were planning to go to the Capitol January 6th to overthrow the government because Donald Trump lost? And I'm like, what? Talk about people who are a danger to democracy.
Okay. So
and as far as I know, they weren't tracking any of those folks. And they showed up with weapons and they beat people.
All right. Okay.
So do you disagree? Do you support what they did on January 6th?
I'm not saying any of that. I'm not saying any of that stuff. I'm saying that's
we will get around to climate change because that's
no, but we'll
that's
take the environment. Yeah,
wheelhouse.
I think that's a multi-layered story when it comes to it is because you're also seeing stuff where they're arresting like grandmas who are going into the
if you don't have a clear line of demarcation on people who were literally trying to storm the Capitol, were looking for Pence to hang him.
Yeah, there were some crazies. But there was also they were also the police officers there were literally letting people in and walk around the Capitol. A lot of the people that went into the Capitol were literally just walking around the Capitol aimlessly taking selfies. Like a lot of those people were there not wanting to do any harm whatsoever. They probably had doubts about the election. They were in the Capitol. They were taking selfies.
We're going to disagree on this.
Fine, but hold on. I'll tell you this though. I'll tell you the concerns I have about this, right? And it's that the biggest threat, in my opinion, was the possible data stealing because people took like Nancy Pelosi's laptop and they took a bunch of stuff. Like it's the stealing of sensitive information, which is probably the most concerning to me out of all that stuff. Is somebody stealing sensitive information?
We agree on that. Although the attempt to overthrow the government was a really big concern.
But it was a pretty shitty insurrection attempt if it only lasted a few hours. When you think about it, like if they really wanted
there's a whole lot of really interesting reporting on this, but there were people in the Pentagon, there were people in the Defense Department who were slow walking the police response. Oh my God, whose brother? Oh, I'm forgetting the names. But anyway, there were people inside, I think, who were on board with an attempt to stop the validating of the presidential election results and try and throw it to Trump. And that would be incredibly dangerous for this country.
And
if
I don't want to talk too much about
cause
voter fraud or the election, because it'll go on a total that could just go.
Yeah.
You can go down you can go we can have a parallel conversation about this, right? About how you feel the integrity of our elections are going, and then you look at what's happening even in New York.
Nothing like
the
claims
stuff,
the Republicans are making. And their attempts to literally prevent black people from voting.
Hold on.
No.
They say that you need ID to vote? That doesn't mean
they included a provision in the Texas bill that would have prevented the Souls to the Polls, which is where...
What's Souls to the Polls? What is
that's where black folks go to services on Sunday morning, and then they all go vote.
Yeah, but
they literally were banning polls from being open until 1 o'clock on Sunday in order to prevent souls to the polls.
But there's also
that is just outrageous
wait, hold on.
voter
But white
suppression.
people also go to church on Sunday too. So how does that necessarily mean it's a ban on black people?
This has been a very long tradition within the black community, and it was absolutely an attempt to suppress the black vote.
Yeah, but you don't think that?
Okay, so we're going to disagree on this.
Okay.
So, we won't go down this.
We're going to talk about the environment. I want to talk more about the environment.
We'll talk about the environment.
But I will say this, right? I will say this. I think that what happened on January 6th, the scariest thing about that is it's creating another legal precedent for our government to continue spying on everyday citizens.
Well, I think they need to be watching the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers.
But
and
it's not included
trying
to that.
to overthrow the government.
So I've been reading some of Biden's White House directives, and basically what the Biden administration is saying is that anybody who is either part of these groups or sympathetic or demonstrates any idea of extremism is somebody that needs to be watched and monitored, is what the Biden administration has said per their documents on WhiteHouse.gov, and it's ambiguous. So,
people
if I'm
who
criticizing,
overthrow the government, I think are dangerous.
Okay,
and
but
I don't think we should just
pretend
that they're grandmas as tourists at the Capitol taking selfies.
Sure. If you want to overthrow the government, you are dangerous. There were also a lot of people that were protesting last summer that were literally chanting "Death to America" and were firebombing police stations and doing all types of crazy stuff for months on end, and they were decimating and destroying small business, and that's not acceptable either.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
I think the majority of people. You're talking about the Black Lives Matter protests. I think the majority of people who showed up for those protests were peaceful.
I think the majority of the people that
were violent and who
that the majority of the people that showed up on January 6th, I think the majority of people that showed up to Washington D.C. on January 6th were also peaceful. I think the majority of people that protest anything are peaceful, and it's always a few bad apples that give a protest a bad name. That's really what I think.
I don't think anybody made up the videos of these mobs of people. It wasn't just a handful of people. There were mobs of people in there who were trying to smash down the door, who were, crushing the officers who were trying to protect the
There were also
elected.
mobs of people that were that just walked in and because they were just allowed to walk into the Capitol and they didn't do anything. And it's just when I was I was at the first
barricades.
Yeah, but I was at the first BLM protest too, and a bunch of us ran into the highway, right? And they saw a bunch of people going onto the highway, right? And, you could have also just easily said, hey, a bunch of BLM radicals ran onto the highway and overtook the highway, and they were all really violent. But then there were a bunch of people like me who just followed the crowd just to see what was going on. So there probably were a lot of people that probably followed the crowd just to see what was going on.
I didn't think that the people who basically stopped traffic were necessarily being violent. I didn't agree with it. But I just think there's a huge difference between that and storming the Capitol to disrupt the validation of a presidential election.
But you also got to. There's another thing. There's another thing too, though, right? You had an entire year of lockdowns. You had you had what happened during the summer. You had the mainstream media that kind of gaslit and suppressed information that was not suitable or favorable to a particular candidate.
I'm a former journalist, and I don't see this mass conspiracy on the part of all the mainstream media to suppress
There were articles being written where Mark Zuckerberg was literally trying to work with the Biden administration to do that.
Zuckerberg, but Facebook is different than the mainstream media. Let's get on to the environment.
Sure, let's talk about the environment. But what I'm saying though is that what happened you don't want what happened on January 6th to create a precedent for Patriot Act 2.0. You don't want that.
You don't want
that.
an overreaction.
Yeah, and I'm scared that's what it's going to lead to. And I think that a lot of this, stuff, is just an excuse. A lot of this woke ideology, or even what Millie's saying and stuff like that. Maybe the sentiment is good, but I'm a skeptic, and I think that a lot of this is just going to be used to continue to bloat our military budget, and that's not something
For the
we
record,
want.
I agreed with General Milley. I thought what he said was really
and I respect
really
your right
important.
to agree with what he said.
But he wasn't in there saying continue giving me billions of dollars, even though we're trying to pull back our forces elsewhere.
Yeah, but you don't have to say it without implying it, right? When you're like, hey,
that was very different than what he said about understanding different. He talked about white rage. He wanted to understand white rage, and in the same way, he wanted to understand the Black Lives Matter movement, and was not supportive of
but then if you
getting
actually
rid
express
of understanding racism and studying it.
Sure. But maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel as though if you were to actually express your rage and why you felt the way you felt to these people, they're not going to do anything to help you. All they're going to do is try to put you on a list. But anyway.
I don't agree with that.
You don't think so?
I don't think there should be an overreaction, but I think the people who are organizing to try and overthrow the government, which the Proud Boys are, the Oath Keepers are, and there's other groups involved as well, like the militia in Michigan, which they were planning on kidnapping the governor and killing her.
Okay, but a lot of those people are already in jail, and they already are dealing with consequences.
We're going to have different perspectives on this, but I think we're in agreement. I don't think there should be an overreaction and a heavy police state.
Yeah, I don't want that. I think it's scary. I think a lot of that stuff is very scary, and I think we got to do what we can to not let that happen. But let's talk about the environment. Okay. So one of the things I said to you was at one point when it came to because we are in an environmental emergency. I really believe
that.
We are. Be it climate change, be it overfishing, be it our coral reefs getting completely decimated and whatnot, be it the way we grow our food, it's not good. It isn't good. The chemicals they put in all the food and the drinking water and everything like that, all the GMO foods, it's scary.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I mentioned to you was at one point over $1.5 billion worth of masks and PPE has been dumped into our water. In the past year.
And that's a problem, but that doesn't mean people shouldn't have been wearing masks during the pandemic.
I mean,
that was the simplest thing people could do aside from not mixing with a lot of other people who were unmasked. But that happens. Well, look at what happens. You have 2 plastic water bottles. I'm using a reusable water bottle. It's not a moral thing.
You are becoming a better steward of the environment than I am at this point.
It's a practical thing because we put more crap in the ocean from single-use plastic drinking water bottles. When the city of Austin had the ban on single-use plastic bags, it cleaned up the shoreline around the Lady Bird Lake and significantly reduced the load in the landfills. I mean, it was a great thing, and the oil and gas interests got to the legislature, and they banned it. That's a much greater threat than masks.
But I don't know,
plastic,
though.
No, it is. I can tell you,
how much?
It is.
Okay. How much single-use plastic? And actually, I think 6,000 tons worth of plastic and unnecessary plastic equipment has also gone into the water because of all the PPE and because of all the food the plastic utensils that people got from takeout with lockdowns and stuff like that. There was a lot of waste that went into landfills and water. That's really scary.
A lot of waste, but it was a spike, and it was a response to a pandemic.
Yeah, but those things stay in the water for 500 years. They're not
your plastic bottles will stay in the water
I know.
Longer.
It's really stupid. You probably should have told me not to get.
You should get worked up about plastic water bottles.
You probably should have talked to me about that. You should have you should have probably.
This isn't news to you, Alex. You're a smart guy. You know that.
I wasn't thinking at the
water
time.
Bottles
you probably should
have
said something. You should have said something to me.
I would have been.
Yeah.
I am now.
Little late. Little after the fact.
I just don't think that. If your argument is people shouldn't have been required to wear masks and we didn't need the PPE,
let me ask you a question. No, I mean I think you need PPE, obviously,
wrong.
right? But let me ask you an honest question.
Yeah.
What's the difference between wearing a mask and just going into a store and just doing this?
What's the difference?
Yeah, I'm covering my face.
Well, most people going into a store like that drop it when they're picking up whatever it is they're going into the store to buy or to pay for it, and it's ineffective. What's the problem with wearing a mask?
Throwing the mask into the landfill and having it go in the ocean.
Then use a reusable mask.
Yeah, but how many people are responsible enough to actually use a reusable mask?
A lot of people.
A lot of people aren't, as evidenced by the fact that 1.6 billion masks are now in our water supply unnecessarily.
It was a necessary thing in response to a worldwide pandemic that's killed over 2 million people.
And let's also here's another. Sorry if I'm interrupting.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to be hectoring or any of that stuff. But 94% of those people who died too had like severe pre-existing conditions and severe ailments.
I don't know where you get the 94%.
It was FDA statistic. It was an FDA or CDC document saying that 94% of people who died of this virus had serious pre-existing conditions.
Was it in the U.S. or worldwide?
This is in the United States.
Okay. We're fatter and sicker. We've got more diabetes, more obesity, more first world,
problems,
overeating problems. That was not the majority of the worldwide
But then
deaths.
why were we not we had the highest death count though out of everybody as a country as a whole.
Yes.
Why was that messaging about like, hey, y'all got to start leading healthier lifestyles? Like, we got to figure out like, why were people not being taught how to grow their own food? Why weren't people being taught like how to like adopt positive lifestyle change in the midst of this pandemic so that they can be better able to make it through if they wind up getting COVID, which you're probably more than likely everyone's going to get it, considering how contagious it is.
There have been a ton of messages. Just like anti-smoking messages, it's been a huge part of public health campaigns for years about eating healthier, living a healthier lifestyle, exercising more, because obesity and diabetes are huge.
Yeah.
They're like the number one killers.
But it wasn't really being talked
country.
about. That took a back seat.
Well, here's the thing. How many people either didn't hear or didn't believe the message around COVID? This is a serious illness, extremely contagious, and you need to get vaccinated. Look at the vaccination rates in places around Texas.
But there's also VAERS reports that show a lot of injuries. There was a 12-year-old girl who was part of a clinical trial that is now in a wheelchair needing a tube to speak and whatnot. Because
she had a bad reaction to the vaccine?
Yeah. There have been a lot of people with bad reactions. There was a jiu-jitsu guy named Craig Jones, top 5 jiu-jitsu guys in the world. He had a bloated abdomen as a result of it. Like Eric Clapton couldn't walk for 2 weeks.
There's small percentages of people who have bad reactions. Some people got the blood clots. But these vaccines are effective at like a 90% plus rate. Do you know how effective the regular influenza vaccine is that you're encouraged to get every year? Because, from the great influenza in
1918,
1918 killed 5 million people around the world. No. But this is an important thing to know. That vaccine is like 40% effective. It's far less effective, and yet it still saves people every year. These vaccines were effective at a rate that was unparalleled. And yes, so the percentage between the 90 and the 100%, people who had bad reactions, some people who may have even died, that is going to happen.
There's also a lot of people that are scared to even come out and share what their bad reactions are because they don't want to be labeled anti-vaxxers or Trumpers and Trump supporters with the tense and heated political climate that we're in.
I just don't think that that's the majority of people.
Look, I don't want to argue against. I don't want to argue against taking a vaccine. I don't want to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
I personally am not vaccinated, and I personally probably am not going to get a vaccine
you told me you were.
No, I didn't. I did not say that. I said that I'm happy to take a test, or I'll distance from you, or I'll be like within 6 feet.
No. You walked up that you were vaccinated.
No, I never said that. I never said that I was vaccinated.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Well, this is why we're sitting in two separate
I literally had to. Yeah, and I'm willing to take whatever precautions are necessary to make everybody around me feel safe and comfortable. But me personally, I don't want to get that vaccine. I don't want to feel like I don't want to get it. It's my choice. But I do think that if you want to get vaccinated for this virus, we should have equal accessibility to the vaccine. And we're actually doing a pretty good job of making this vaccine accessible to people.
You were outraged that the waste from the masks and the PPE is getting into the water supply.
Sure.
And that will be harmful. Why are you not outraged that a percentage of people who aren't getting vaccinated are contributing to the literally mutation of the virus, resulting in what's now the Delta virus variant, which is much more contagious.
This is just
really? You think a lot of this stuff? You think all these doctors are making it up?
No, but I think that
Alex, this is dangerous talk. It really is.
No, I don't think they're making it up, but I do think that
you think they're lying about the numbers of people who are getting it in other countries?
No. I'm not saying that, right? But a lot of the times they're also saying that the people who've been vaccinated for the Delta variant, for regular COVID, aren't even like it's not. They're questioning how effective the vaccines have been, and I've been hearing stories of people getting the Delta variant when they've been vaccinated.
There was also
an article.
It's a small percentage.
There have been articles
of people.
in the NIH,
But you didn't answer my question because you were outraged that the waste from masks and PPEs was getting in the water supply because you believe it's harming the water supply.
Sure.
Why are you not outraged?
Because I don't know what the long-term side effects of this vaccine is going to be.
People's behavior is causing mutations that are making more people sick, and we have a clear methodology to prevent
Brigid,
it.
First of all, I don't know.
So if you're not going to get vaccinated, wear a mask. Do you wear a mask? I have a reusable mask. I can give it to you right now.
No, it's okay. I have.
It's the Sobering Center reusable mask. You can wash it. You don't have to throw it away. If you're not going to get vaccinated, at least don't be part of the chain that's causing mutation and spreading it.
If you have an active set of antibodies for COVID, and this is in the NIH article, right?
Okay,
if you have an active,
we're going to talk about the environment.
Let's talk about the environment.
We're really going to
disagree on this. We're going to disagree on this. But anyway, the point is that you can have active antibodies for this virus for at least 8 months and possibly longer. And you've had doctors coming.
COVID?
I'm sure I've gotten COVID. I'm sure I've gotten this virus. I've been out and about this entire time.
You can get tested and find out. But even if you've gotten it, you can get it again, especially with the new variant, and it's much more contagious and much more deadly.
Then I'm in a personal place where I would rather take my risks with that.
I'm going to leave this with you. You don't have to take it from me.
Sure.
But
sure.
At least wear a mask. That's like the least.
I'll show you the mask I'll show you the mask I have when we finish with the
Wait, why is it rude?
You'll see.
Okay.
You'll see.
So on the environment, this is. I am somebody who cares a lot about water. I mean, that's really clear from my personal history.
Yeah.
So one of the realities, if you look at really the mountain of data and science and evidence about the impact that climate change is having, is that our region, Austin, Texas area, actually big portions of the southern United States, will become much hotter and much drier. So that means people who love living here, we're not going to be able to continue living here probably past 2080 because probably sooner, much of the drinking water supply will have dried up. Were you here in 2011 when Lake Travis looked like a couple of puddles?
No, I was still in New York. I moved here in 2013.
Google Lake Travis 2011 drought, and you'll see the photos that were truly shocking. I mean, when people drove out, like to the Oasis or wherever, it was like little puddles. That is our drinking water supply. So one of the big things that I've been working on is stopping the epic waste of water. Do you know what the biggest waste of water is? Air conditioning. Every large building uses massive amounts of water for air conditioning.
That's the other thing too. Like our city talks the whole big game about
the supply. No, the city's actually doing this.
At City Hall, it's like 60 degrees in City Hall all the time.
Well, but they've created a network of pipes to distribute the treated wastewater. It's called reuse water or purple pipe water. And if you swap that out for the water for the air conditioning supply, you eliminate the demand for it from the drinking water. You're using water that would otherwise be discharged into Lady Bird Lake and downstream as treated wastewater.
That's actually pretty interesting stuff.
It's a brilliant thing, and it's so easy to do. We converted 4 of the larger buildings in downtown Austin that are the county office buildings and a portion of the jail. We've permanently reduced the demand for almost 40 million gallons of water a year, permanently, left in Lake Travis. If UT and the state capitol did that, and some high-rises downtown, we could permanently leave over 1 billion gallons of water a year in Lake Travis. It would stretch our drinking water supply, and that's just one thing that you can do at a building level and an institutional level, like at UT or the state capitol.
That's actually
and we're
really
not doing it.
I'm gonna post that clip on my social medias because that's actually that's something I think people should look into.
Absolutely, people need to know about it.
You know what? What really made me frustrated? Because I feel as though a lot of our city officials are a little bit hypocritical when it comes to this climate stuff.
Like how so?
Well, a couple years ago, Kinder Morgan they're building a pipeline.
Oh, the pipeline stuff. Yeah.
And
the city of Austin was part of the lawsuit to stop it.
Yeah, at the very end, they barely said anything. Like, Greg Casar has like 25,000 followers on Twitter. Adler at the time had like 50, 60K followers, right? These guys had big platforms, and people listened to them. And if they had been tweeting about this, if they had been talking about this, if they had been bringing the public's awareness of this Kinder Morgan pipeline could have been another Standing Rock. It really could have. The amount of influence that our media has amongst the people in Austin and the amount of influence that our local politicians have, this could have been a Standing Rock. And
At the
the
county,
reason
we voted to join the lawsuit.
Sure, you joined a lawsuit, but like a lot of people who live in Austin don't even know about this pipeline, and that's gross. People didn't even know about this, and the fact that like our city barely did anything to even talk about this, minus maybe Leslie Poole, who actually did the lawsuit.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was
which props to
it was south of Travis County, outside the city limits of Austin. But our rationale was a significant population in the southern part of Travis County relies on that aquifer for drinking water, and that's where the pipeline was.
And a lot of people that live in Austin go to like Hayes County, because that's what's running through Hayes County.
Yeah.
To go swimming, to go fishing, to do a lot of nature activities, and you're destroying nature for the people that live here. And that's horrible. And then you're using eminent domain to build this against people's will, and that's like the most anti-conservative thing you could do in the world.
Well, I will say I love that this administration, like the second day in office, canceled the XL pipeline.
Good, but they didn't do anything about. Why didn't they do something about Kinder Morgan?
I think it was already built. Isn't it already built?
I think they're still building it. I'm not 100% on it.
Yeah, I've lost track. It's been a while.
Yeah,
I've lost track.
But
I mean, congratulations to you for raising the subject and being involved on it.
I tried to. I don't think I really did very much. I canvassed like 3 times and
tried
to talk about it.
It's also like this is how hard it is to communicate stuff to people. So back to the health issue, there's been huge campaigns around people changing their diet and exercising to lose weight so they don't get diabetes from becoming obese. How much does that message penetrate?
Yeah.
So,
but I mean,
all of us on all these different platforms trying to get information out to people.
Does the government have a right to like tell you that you can't move about freely or that you can't make a living without them justifiably compensating you? Like there's all these other. Then you go down a whole nother rabbit.
During the pandemic when they said people had to. Well, that's what the unemployment,
which is cool.
The extra funds, and then Abbott denies it, turns it down.
Yeah, after about a year and change, while we've been still doing it, and a bunch of small businesses can't find people to actually go back to work, and if these small businesses fail, who overtakes them is large mega corporations. You don't want Austin to turn into that.
Do you know how people had money to even spend at those small businesses?
Unemployment.
The unemployment.
I know.
Exactly. So people are bitching about not being able to hire people. Honestly, to me, that's a wage and benefits issue. And I get it. It's harder for small businesses.
But if I'm a small business owner, I don't want to be lectured. Okay,
you're saying don't let the government force people and tell them what to do? There's people who are literally cutting off unemployment benefits because they're like, this maybe will force people to come back to work. I think unemployment serves a purpose, and a big part of that extra unemployment money was to keep money in the economy so that all these businesses didn't go under. It enabled people to have money to spend to support the local economy.
Okay, so I'm going to say 2 things, right?
Then we need to wrap it up.
Sure,
because I'm out of time.
That's fine. I think this is pretty productive.
Yeah,
I think that A, are you not worried about like hyperinflation taking place as a result of all this money printing? And B, we should. If you want my honest opinion, you should be letting people do both. You should, like, at least for now, while this pandemic is going on, you should just give people the option of doing both, and just say, hey, maybe if you're going to choose to go back to work, you collect like $200 or $300 less. You collect a little bit less of unemployment, or you offer like back to work bonuses, or do something like that.
Well, and that's also what the money is to loan. It's not even a loan; it's a grant to small businesses. We've been doing it through the county, targeting women-owned small businesses, minority-owned small businesses. That a lot of them got passed over when that first round of PPP went out.
It got passed over?
Trump.
They just didn't even.
Well, look at who it went to. It went to companies that were.
It didn't even go to small
on
businesses.
The stock exchange.
It didn't,
I know
but
it didn't go
to
small businesses. So my point was, we got that federal money at Travis County last year, and we set up a program to give it to small businesses that were really small businesses that weren't part of large mega corporations that were selling on the stock exchange.
Well, because I know a lot of bar and restaurant owners that are like really pissed about how that's been handled.
Well, that was under the Trump administration. You may have noticed. This administration has been far more generous in making sure that money gets out to smaller businesses and doesn't go to people who have, again, massive corporations and don't really need it.
I'm actually talking to Austin Talley in a few weeks, the owner of Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and I'm going to ask him about all that just to see what his perspective is.
Did they go after PPP money?
I believe that. I feel like anybody, yeah. They either did or they know somebody who did, right?
There were some that were kind of shamed into giving it back because they had so much money in the bank and they didn't really even need it.
There's that. Like Shake Shack got a bunch and they gave the money back.
They were shamed into giving it back.
Well, one of my friends is a manager there, and he was like talking about all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they voluntarily just gave it back. They weren't even shamed. They were just like, we don't need this. Why do we?
Well, they were on the front pages of newspapers all over the.
But they gave it back. They still gave it back.
They did. They gave it back.
Which is super noble. But back to this inflation stuff.
I'll tell you what really worries me, and I'm not an economist, but what really worries me in Austin is the obscene growth of wealth inequality.
We talked about this. I like this.
Yeah, I just think that will be more harmful for Austin over the short term and the long term than almost anything else that happens to the economy. Because literally, the people who made Austin such a great place to live, and I include in that all the musicians, the artists, the communities of color that have rich, cultural traditions, food traditions, music, performance, all of it, art. The environmental community that's fought so hard to preserve what's been beautiful and rare and unique about this place, they're all being driven out.
Yeah, it's bad.
And it is bad. So, like, what, do we become the next Maui or something, where only it's like the playground for the rich?
Well, that's why I think we got to start adopting. That's why we got to start. We got to start adopting Bitcoin. We talked about.
Okay, we had a disagreement about this, and I gotta go. I don't have time to talk about. Bitcoin.
Seriously, we got to adopt it.
I just think it's too volatile.
Yeah, but
for it to be something that people are going to put all their savings.
You don't put all your
savings
into any asset. That's the dumbest financial move.
El Salvador just did.
No, they said that they're accepting it as legal tender, which means it
becomes their fiat currency.
No, the dollar. They still use the dollar. It's just backed by Bitcoin. It just has a standard now.
Well, that standard's pretty volatile.
It's volatile, but you know what? If you look at how the prices, if you look at the price chart,
I think there's a lot of interesting stuff happening with all kinds of cryptocurrency.
It's a fixed currency and it's appreciating.
Blockchain.
It's a fixed currency. It's appreciating. You want to talk about the environment and you want to talk about climate change. A big reason why we have these environmental problems is because we have a fiat system that loses value every single day. And because of that, you create an overly consumeristic way of doing things. When you use something like Bitcoin, it's deflationary over time by nature. And so when you have a deflationary financial system, you're a lot less likely to overindulge.
I'm going to have to wrap this up. And I do think Bitcoin's too volatile. And I keep asking people, who are all these Bitcoin miners that are like the basic underpinning and foundation of Bitcoin? And I can't really get a clear answer about who they are. But if I have no idea who it is that's creating the value of a cryptocurrency, it's hard for me to put my trust in that because I have no idea who it is.
Yeah, but all of the transactions are secured and there's no incentive to. There's the only
but the
incentive
volatility of it, your transaction might be secured, but if it drops 50% in a day,
well, you don't sell at the bottom. You just wait and it goes back up.
All I'm saying is,
in 2000,
I can't put my trust in it yet.
Sure, but
I think
if you
it's
understand how like the charts and the Fibonacci's and all that stuff work, this year with the way every 4 years they have the number. Okay, every 4 years they have the number of new Bitcoins that they are allowed to issue. Okay, and every 4
initially
years,
it was a fixed number. It was never going to increase.
No.
That's what it was when
it ultimately
was
becomes
first
a fixed number.
Introduced.
Right, but. They still have to mine new coins.
I gotta wrap this up.
And they always have the number of new coins that could be possibly mined.
I gotta wrap this up.
All right.
So thank you. It was great talking with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to come talk about climate change and environmental impacts and things that we can do. But if your listeners work in a large building or work at a big institution like UT or the state capitol, ask them to swap the water supply for the air conditioning and quit using treated drinking water. Swap it to the city's purple pipe system. And we can stretch our water supply. And you'll never notice it because you're not drinking the water in the air conditioning system.
Yeah. Also, one last thing. We should have more scooters at the bus stops. All right. Hey, Brigid, Shea, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks, Alex. Good to see you all. Take care.